Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bear in Mind. This is just a conversation. I think this maybe could be what the channel becomes. Maybe a monthly podcast with a conversation from me and Matt. Because I was watching. I finally started watching Reeves and Whitehouse go fishing. No, Mortimer and Whitehouse go fishing. Sorry.
Yeah. Vic Reeves doesn't exist anymore.
No.
No, he's retired the name.
Yes.
He's just Jim Moyer, the artist.
And and I realised, like, as I was watching, it's like, this is just a podcast.
Of course it is. Yeah. You could totally listen to it. In fact, I have listened to it. Like, I'm sure I've done some. I'm sure I've had some like nice houseworking days of just putting a bit of gone fishing on while I was doing something.
It's delightful viewing, and really highlights how much of a national treasure they are.
Oh God, yeah. Like, I think it's just.
I caught a few of Mortimer's TikToks recently. I've never seen them before. Ones where he does a little song.
I've not seen them. I can only imagine.
At the end, he always talks about how he's going to kill again. I'll send them you if I can find them again. I don't have TikTok myself. It just surfaced on my Twitter feed, and I was like,
"No,
these are hilarious."
Yeah, I don't want that Chinese data mining software on my phone.
Oh, I mean, I don't have a problem with it being Chinese data mining software. It's no different than it being what is now Musk data mining software, or
true.
Zuckerberg data mining software. Like, I'm not going to hold up any moral kind of composure with not having it. I'm just too old for it.
The Bluebird site really has changed quite significantly in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. I have to wrestle it into showing me the stuff I actually want to see now.
Well, that's it. Like, I spend a lot of my time, like, even before like recent South African purchases of Bluebirds, just arguing with Tories and AKA Nazis, and it's just decided.
There we are, getting rather political in the first 8 minutes, so there's no chance. Not that we have a monetized channel anyway, but there is zero chance this video can be monetized.
Yeah. But yeah, it's now just gone, oh, you seem to like these types of people. Here's a lot more posts from people you don't know.
That's the thing. He says if you... He did say that, oh, well, it's neutral. If you argue with things a lot, the system's just going to think you like that stuff.
Which is fair enough. Like, so... Yeah,
but
I'm just getting more argumentative.
I try and remember to flick it over to the actual feed every time I go on, because
people you are following.
My feed was finally curated.
Yeah.
But moving on.
So we're filming this during Lunar New Year.
Are we?
Yes, we are. So depending on what part of
did you see the I know that as well. Did you see the video of the Lion Cub or the Tiger Cub? What year have we come out of? Year of Tiger? Or year of Lion?
We've come out of cat and gone into rabbit.
Oh, it was cat rabbit. Well, we introduced
unless you're in Vietnam, then we're going into cat.
They introduced a rabbit to a big cat, and it went about as well as you'd expect.
The rabbit ate the cat.
No one was harmed. They got the cat. They got the rabbit away in time.
Yeah.
But the cat just went for it.
Where was this? What genius did this?
I don't know. It was a zoo somewhere. I saw a video, but I want to say China. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. It was a zoo. Whether we decided to do a thing where we were like, oh, we're going to introduce them to each other as we shift over on the table, and the cat just went for it.
And
I think it was like, when I say cat, I think it was a cub of a big cat. It was like a tiger or a lion cub.
Oh, yeah. So it was fair game then, really. But yeah, so this is essentially our New Year show, because we did shoot something at the end of last year, and I only just finished editing it the other day.
And I haven't uploaded it yet, so...
Yeah, so James will put it up.
Yeah, probably.
It was sort of an end of year ramble, so it's not really anything urgent anyway. But this is our Happy New Year. We didn't do it with the our calendar New Year, but we're filming this on Lunar New Year. So Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
And our gift to you is a chat about some games.
Yes, we have an internet breaking topic today.
Yeah.
What is a game? And let me tell you,
What is a game?
I have some spicy takes.
James always has spicy takes when it comes to these things. I think we've actually, funnily enough, we've both recently completed a game each,
Yes,
which is
very rare for me.
It's exceedingly rare for both of us, in all honesty, because I don't play as often as I'd like to, except for Gran Turismo, which arguably cannot be completed. Most of it's online now.
I played and completed Last of Us Part 1, which is the PS5 remake of The Last of Us. I decided to play it before the TV show started because I wanted to watch the TV show.
Because you'd never finished the...
I've never really played the game.
Yeah.
I'd got half hour in and gave up.
Yeah. And how did you find it?
Well, here's that key point we were getting into what is a game, because I think what sparked it off was you were like ranking what you think of as top tier and lower tier PlayStation studios.
Yes, because I recently completed 2018's God of War. Yes, we are that up to date. James is playing a recent remake of a PS3 game, and I'm playing a nearly 5-year-old PlayStation 4 game. So.
And it opened up because I don't think Naughty Dog make good games.
Are you going as far as good games now? Because I think originally you were saying they don't make great games.
No.
You're going as far as they don't make good games now.
I think they make great interactive video experiences.
Okay.
With functional enough gameplay to string it along. Because Last of Us, let's say, is a stealth action game, right? Stealth feels like it's a key factor in the...
Yeah. Realistically, the stealth in
it's terrible.
The original...
It's...
I mean, I've not played the remake. The original version and obviously the remaster for the PS4, because it's essentially the same gameplay. That was loosely based on the stealth that they brought in for Uncharted 2.
I enjoyed myself thoroughly. I think it's great. I think The Last of Us is great. I get why everyone loves it. But if we were just judging it on being a game...
Yeah.
An experience of play. It's fine.
Yeah.
If you strip out, and you shouldn't because we need to take these things as a whole. But for the point of this conversation, we are.
Yeah.
If you strip out the story, which is excellent. If you strip out the excellent acting, which is excellent. And we judge it on its game mechanics alone, there is countless better stealth action games. I would say there are games that I consider considerably worse that are better.
Yeah. Like the Sniper Elite games.
And the same would be said about Uncharted, I think. Uncharted has perfectly adequate action combat that strings together an excellent adventure story. For Last of Us is an excellent survivor horror story that has perfectly adequate gameplay to string it together. And are we at the point where is gameplay just to cross over to another art form? Because you could watch a great film that has perfectly adequate cinematography, right? nothing to write home about, but it does the job. It serves a
Yeah,
purpose,
like
and the
a
film can be great around that. Still,
is it Tom Hooper?
Tom
Is that
Hooper
in?
is a special case.
Yeah, but I mean, like like say the King's Speech, absolutely superb film, brilliantly acted. And to get actors to
But
perform
I
that well,
think,
you need a director that directs
but I also
people
think the
well.
King's Speech is another one because the cinematography works for the
Mm.
story the King's Speech is telling. Is when that same
Mm.
cinematography gets applied to things like Les Mis, that
Yeah, yeah.
it falls down.
Mm. Um, so yeah, I mean, I was just sort of like
But yeah,
throwing an
I get
example
where
out
you.
there. Yeah, 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 yeah.
But or television of the olden days, right? Star Trek. We all love Star Trek, but it
Yeah.
just has what it needs.
Or even the Orville. If we're gonna like, I mean, you
Although
watch.
Orville season 3 gets special, gets
No, I mean, Orville season three, at least outside the ship when it comes to like the space stuff, but like inside the with the sets and things, they're very deliberately still the aesthetic that they started
it's
with.
still stepped
They're they're
up.
sh- they're it's stepped up. It's
Watching,
like it's
admittedly,
it's a higher budget.
I've not finished season
Mm.
3,
I
but
think I've got one episode left.
watching Orville season 3 feels like you're
Mm.
watching the Orville equivalent of Star Trek movies.
I get you. Yeah, 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 yeah.
But yeah, back to Naughty Dog and
Mm.
The Last of Us. So as an overall experience, it's fantastic.
Mm.
Everything comes together, and the gameplay is good enough. But when we're discussing games, surely the gameplay should be the most important factor.
I suppose that's where the question,
Because what is a
what
function
is
of
a
a game, right?
yeah, but what is a game? Because I think obviously we've been very lucky in a way in that we've lived through gaming realistically in its infancy. We're not old enough to remember Pong first being out or
But
anything like
that's
that,
the thing,
but
can
like we've seen gaming evolve so much and so quickly in our lifespans. It would be the same realistically of someone who maybe was in their teens when Chaplin was still at his height and potentially saw it all the way through to uh, maybe Lawrence of Arabia. And I think that's where, because obviously during that period, that's when TV started to be born as well.
but I think
And I think we're,
the, there's a key difference though
mm,
in the notion that film and TV, even with all its advancements,
mm,
is always and for the most part will always be a passive media.
yes,
Video gaming isn't a passive media.
correct.
And let's go with another example of, I think, game directors, game makers who love film and try the hardest to emulate film.
Mm,
I think we have Naughty Dog on one hand,
yeah.
who take us so far to emulating film that they basically become it.
Sorry, I'm just plugging the charger in. Yeah.
And I think this is going to be the interesting fact with as we watch The Last of Us show. If watching the
Yeah.
show does not feel like a different enough experience to playing the game,
Mm,
if I feel like I get the same type of enjoyment out of it, then that's going to be an interesting
well, I
kind
know
of.
episode 2 that's just aired is directed by Druckmann.
Yeah, it is.
I think that will be the really interesting one to
Yeah.
watch because obviously that is a game director jumping to, in theory, a foreign media for him.
Because there is times in The Last of Us where I did just feel like, okay, I want to get to the next
Mm,
cutscene. This
Yeah,
room full of bad guys are just my obstacle that I have to defeat to get to the next point of the story.
yeah.
Now, there's some clever design bits as well, like the bit where you're sneaking, trying to flank the sniper. Really cool. There are moments of gameplay that are well designed, even if the core gameplay cycle itself I still think is just serviceable.
Mm.
Let's go for another stealth game, right? From a director who really likes to emulate films, but never, ever lose sight of game. Kojima.
Yeah.
Like, at no point do you ever think you are playing anything but a video game with any other Metal Gear franchise.
Yeah, and I
I've
think
not played
sometimes.
Death Stranding, admittedly, yet.
No, I haven't. No. There is some that think it's his finest work. I like. I. I mean, there are others that don't, but like there are some that definitely think it's his finest work. Um, I think again though, Metal Gear throughout the years has had that a similar criticism in that like it isn't always the best stealth game. Like when
Oh no,
it was at the
there's better stealth
yeah,
games than Metal
like when it
Gear,
was
but
at the height of Splinter Cell versus Metal Gear, Splinter Cell was definitely a better stealth game, but was it a better game overall? And I think
although
when you add some of the context of story, of voice acting,
the
and
gameplay is still not there just to serve for
yeah, yeah,
like it still has.
mm,
I'm gonna say something that's gonna sound slightly pretentious here, but it's still game genic.
okay,
Like
go on, yeah, yeah, yeah.
it still has that. I am playing for the joy of play,
Yeah.
as opposed to, and again, this feels like I'm being overly critical of Naughty Dog, and I do want to stress I love the Uncharted games, and I very much enjoyed The Last of Us.
Mm.
But it was when The Last of Us, I think, is when I came to the conclusion, like, I am not playing for the joy of play here. I am going through this to get to the next story drop.
Yeah,
There are
I think
times that blurs as well, when it forces you. Does anyone spoilers for the? Ah, no, because it's a TV show on the air, so I don't know what to spoil it.
what is it
If it was
early or
just
late
if it
game?
was just at the end of a game, if it was just
Ah,
if the TV
no, I
was on
get
the
you.
air at the moment, I would because it's an
Mm.
old it's an old game.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But people are watching the show who haven't watched play the game, so I'm not going to say it. But what it does at the end, how it
Mm.
makes you do that rather than make it a cutscene, that is
Mm.
an interesting combination of game and story.
And I think that's where like
But for the
the
most part,
question.
it's not doing that.
Yeah,
It's just you are having to play because that is what is expected of you to do.
mm,
But it is serviceable, and you are enjoying an excellent story. And there is moments where you have conversations as you're walking, and that does add. There's some of the nicer points between Joel and Ellie, to be fair, when they're just
and I think actually that's
chatting.
something that Naughty Dog do particularly well. Actually,
Yeah,
like their non-cutscene story work
but that is
is
also
absolutely superb.
in the breather moments
Um,
where you are just pushing an analog stick and walking.
yeah, but
Like,
then they were one of the first studios to do things like incidental movement, like when you walk past a table or something, and Nathan Drake or Joel will like automatically just run their fingers along it because
yeah,
that's what humans do. I think that there are. I actually do agree with you as far as like say as an action game, there are better action games than Uncharted games. There are also significantly worse. I think that like most of the Tomb Raiders that came out in the early Uncharted's were awful.
yeah
Um,
they were
the The
bad.
reboots,
The last one actually
significantly
wasn't
better.
terrible, but
The reboots are better, but
see, I'm
when it
gonna
was still the
slightly
classic.
disagree because
Go on.
Tomb Raider Anniversary and the games that came
Mm,
after it
yeah,
aren't bad. They're not bad at all. They're not
I
Uncharted in polish,
mm,
but Anniversary, which was a remake of Tomb Raider One,
yeah, yeah.
is not a bad game.
It was all right. It
That
was all right.
said,
I just
the Tomb
like,
Raiders that come out later,
yeah.
so the trilogy,
Mm,
are better games than the Uncharted franchise.
I'll give you that. I
They
think they
might.
are better. I think they're better games. I still prefer overall the Uncharted.
I
Um,
think I think Uncharted Four is
I
excellent,
still haven't played Uncharted 4, and neither of us have played Last of Us Part 2 yet. So obviously
but
we've.
it, yeah, mechanically, the Tomb Raider games are better games,
Mm,
as in the modern trilogy.
yeah, yeah.
Admittedly, I've only played the first one. I've not played 2 and 3. But what I played of 1 was a better game.
Mm,
Like in that again that game genic sense.
mm,
Going the other end of the spectrum, because here we are still hanging around in story games.
mm.
One of my favourite games, if not my favourite game of the past, I guess a decent while now, to be fair, Mario Odyssey.
Mm.
I still think it's potentially the greatest game of its generation. Where you slot its generation is a hard one because the Switch comes out in a weird time period.
Yeah.
However, like if we're gonna put the Switch on par with the PS4 and the Xbox One, I think Mario Odyssey is the best game of
I
that
think,
generation.
yeah, I think if you put it in that era, I think that probably makes
And
sense
it
realistically.
and this is going to be this is pure game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there is a story. Bowser's kidnapped Peach again. He's going to marry her. Mario's like, no, I'm going to get Magic Hat and stop you.
Mm.
Rinse and repeat. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's amazing. I love that game so much. Like the game design, the level design, the world design, all
But
of it
then
is just pure magic.
Mario
But that is,
is a great example of storytelling through level design. Because it tells you what these areas are. It
yeah, but
explains a world that they're living in and what
it's
have
neither
you.
here nor there. It doesn't
No, I
matter.
know it's neither here or there, but then it allows your imagination to like go like to run wild, and you can look at these incredible things and like, oh my god, this is amazing. Like, um,
But it's a game that's point is play.
oh
And
yeah, of
that's
course, yeah.
something, I'd say that's something true of Nintendo in general.
Mm,
The point of Nintendo games is very firmly, like, I know there's a conversation going on at the moment whether Breath of the Wild 2 should have destroyable weapons, and the answer is yes, yes it should.
mm,
I know people think that was annoying, but they're wrong. I mean, and Nintendo knows better than them.
mm,
Like, it's like, no, destroying weapons was terrible. We don't want that. It's like, yes, you do. You don't realise
mm.
why you had fun with Breath of the Wild, but that was one of the core reasons you had fun with Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, it will add drama.
It
It adds
also
it adds a
makes you
certain
explore.
sense
Also,
of
you get to a certain point in the game that you have so many weapons, it just doesn't matter.
yeah.
Like,
Well, that's the other thing that, like, obviously, if it's a case of like there aren't other weapons out or there aren't enough other weapons out there, and it becomes too hard, then yeah, fair enough. That's a different point. But if the game maker has gone, well, this sword will die, but guess what? There's a dozen other swords just over that hill. Like,
yeah,
then it doesn't matter. Like, especially in an open world environment where if you found yourself uh, about to attack too many people or too many things and your sword is going to die, just run away.
and
It's not, in a linear experience, it would be different. If it was like somewhere, an Uncharted, for instance, if Drake's gun just suddenly stopped working and there were no other ammo around and you couldn't pick up enemy weapons and this, that, and that would be awful.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but because you can't necessarily backtrack either.
Another one of my favourite games that I adore, and I think tells a good story as well. The first Dishonored,
Yes.
great because it's a game first,
Mm,
and there's a story like through both environmental storytelling and actual plot.
Mm.
And I think that's some of the best storytelling games, when you find a journal and you read it.
Mm.
Like, games are capable of so much more than just imitating film, because they're not a passive media.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Um,
and I think there is room for your Last of Us. No, I'm saying there's room. There's certainly room. The world
mm.
needs your Last of Us. These experiences are great, but I think we're at a point where, as a genre, it's hitting a point. Not as a genre, as a form. Sorry.
A medium.
Yeah, as a medium,
Yeah.
it's it's weird in the fact that I don't think this happens to film, and I don't think it happens to TV, and I don't think it happens to books or comics. They can experiment with form and still quintessentially remain what they are.
I think because again they are passive. Like with games, as you say, because they are something that you are physically part of.
Yeah.
Um, it also makes that a much, much, much broader spectrum of what a game can
And
be.
I think this is the key of my question. Are Last of Us
Mm.
and Mario the same thing? They're obviously different
No.
genres.
Mm.
They're obviously different genres.
Yeah.
But are they even the same form? Like,
No, I'm not sure they are. I think that and I think realistically the obviously you've just mentioned a couple of different things that like within film you have television and they are different. And I know obviously in modern years the lines have blurred a little bit because of very, very high budget cinema grade
and
television.
I mean,
But
here's
like
another spicy take. I think
yeah.
TV has suffered because of it.
No, I agree. I think because I think there's great TV that's actually done really well out of it. Like Andor last year is possibly
like,
possibly my media
like
experience of the year.
I've been watching
Um,
that 90s show, and it's like,
yeah.
yeah, traditional sitcom. It's nice. And to be fair, there's been a good resurgence of traditional sitcoms in recent years. You've
Mm.
got Abbott Elementary, US Ghosts, if we're talking American sitcoms, is
I
apparently
need
been
to
proven
retry
quite
that.
popular.
I need to retry that.
And you also
Made the
have
myth.
the new cinematic sitcom, like Our Flag Means Death,
Mm.
which I've watched a few episodes of that now. It's on iPlayer, and it's very, very good.
I
I'd like to claim, even though he's from New Zealand and we can't, I'd like to still claim Rhys Darby as a national treasure. But that'd be very colonial
yeah,
of me.
it is rather close. I mean, although at some point he would have been British, his family, so we can we'll claim he's a cousin. He's a cousin, James. So, um, but yeah, no, I get you. I get you. I think that like this.
It's also
I
interesting,
think.
like, because I'm obviously a big tabletop gamer, right? And
Hmm,
but then I guess there is different forms in, like, they can be widely different board games, but I never like question whether they are board games, right? Like,
well, I mean, I suppose even going as far as like saying like
Jenga to
when you're
Monopoly. I mean, if we're talking,
yeah
that's obviously if we're talking board games, everyone would know.
yeah.
Jenga to Monopoly, right? Radically different things. I would say both are board games. That said, there is
Hmm.
different forms within the tabletop. I think tabletop
I
role
mean,
playing
even
games are different to
like
board games, and I think war games are different to board games, even if
yeah.
they are all played on the table and share although more people play tabletop RPGs over Discord chats
Hmm.
now,
Yeah.
but I think all share like a proto cousin,
Yeah.
or like a proto ancestor was a word I was looking for, not cousin.
No, I get you. Yeah.
But
Because we were talking about Reece Darby.
wargaming, board gaming, and roleplay gaming
Hmm.
are three different forms that are played on the table.
Yeah.
And I
They all
wonder if,
probably just come from
and maybe that
things like
is the art
card
form
games.
we should look at for video games more than we should necessarily look at for
Yeah.
video games. Like, look at
Yeah.
the other toys, the other form
Yeah.
of play, not the form of entertainment. Passive entertainment, I mean.
No, I get
Like,
you. I get you.
maybe we're reaching this splitting point now where different forms are forming. Like, that there'll be that maybe video game has become too broader. I don't know. I'm spitballing. These are just
No, no, no.
these are just random thoughts I have.
No, I think you have a very valid point there. To be perfectly honest, I think sort of going back to what I was saying about the difference between film and TV. That like the on the surface, film and TV, they are siblings, but they do have very set differences between the two of them. Same with, say, a book and comics.
Yeah.
They are most certainly siblings, but they have their own rules to them. I
Yes, and
don't.
then you've got comics like, again, I'm just gonna pick one that everyone will know, even if there's much more experimental stuff out there than this. But again, I'm not going to assume our viewers are inherently familiar with a comic form. So let's just pick an experimental comic that everyone would know. Watchmen. Plays with both form and genre, because again, superheroes aren't comics, superheroes are a genre.
Yeah.
So Watchmen plays with both the comic form and the genre of superheroes, the expectations you have for it to deliver something different, but it's still a comic.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. There's no.
And I think that's where, realistically, that's where gaming is at the moment, where gaming can be so many different things.
But the key difference is what I just said there is how there's no doubt that whatever Watchmen is, it's a comic.
Yeah.
Yet we're having a genuine discussion of what makes a video game. You can't ever doubt Watchmen is a comic. Like, experiments with it, but you can't put it down and go, well, that's not a comic, is it? Like,
well, yeah, I watched. There was there's a few YouTube channels recently. They have done.
And I say this, of course, for Last of Us is a game. You play it.
Oh yeah, no, but I mean, it's like, but where's that line drawn? And there's a yeah, as I was saying, there's a few YouTube channels recently have done a 30 platinums in 30 days challenge.
Yeah.
And one of the games in the video that I watched was a game that you can get the platinum in 20 minutes. And literally all you do, it's based on a Australian children's book.
Yeah.
And it's literally it's boy, I can't remember what it's called, but it's something like Boy on an Island or something like that. And you literally just walk around this tiny little desert island, and it tells a story that was in this kid's illustrated book. And apparently it's beautiful and it's lovely, and anyone that's a fan of the book or even isn't a fan of the book and just wants an interesting experience, it's absolutely wonderful, and it's a valid piece of art and a valid experience. But the guy that played it did question whether it was a game, because it was you that was in control of the character, and realistically, as long as you went to every location that you needed to go to on the island, which again I assume was up to you to do it, which does in theory qualify it as a game, because it was your choice to go through it. But then it's such a short experience. Does that still count as a game because it's short? Like, has length got anything to do with it? Has the amount of input got anything to do with it?
See,
like
going, and I apologise that we're using The Last of Us as the linchpin for this conversation, but it just feels
it's only
like
because
yeah.
I mean, it's topically relevant.
It's
with
going
the TV series
again back to something I slightly touched on earlier with the TV series. And if a TV series gives a similarly fulfilling experience that makes you feel the same way, it's going to be a case of like, was having to make it a game just in the way of a story they actually wanted to tell? Like, was like people say like, oh yeah, this is the great, like people saying like this is the greatest video game adaptation ever. It's like, yeah, maybe because it's barely adapting. It's adapting something that's already. The gameplay's just kind of there for The Last of Us.
Yeah.
The story it's adapting is already close to the form that they're adapting it into. Like, I love the Mario film, I love the Street Fighter film. But they are terrible because they're adapting something that isn't adaptable into film. Not remotely. Mario, certainly Mario as it was when the Super Mario Bros. Movie came out, right? There's nothing adaptable there into video game form other than the name Mario and some of the character designs, maybe.
Yeah.
Street Fighter, you can't outside of having characters who are fighting. There's nothing really remotely adaptable there. The reason video game movies have sucked in the past is generally because, and we have a whole series called Are Video Game Movies Bad, actually? It's because there's nothing to actually adapt. The people are never going to be happy. You're not going to get the experience of Doom from watching Doom, although they'd give it a good shot with that first person scene. But you're not going to get the experience you enjoy of playing Street Fighter from watching a Street Fighter film. You adapt Street Fighter into a film, and you've got a martial arts movie that may be good or may be bad, but completely independent of what it's adapting. There isn't a source material there to truly
because there were too many gaps to fill in. Like, I mean, the thing is,
there's great Street Fighter animes out there, so it is doable. You can, but you are creating lore. You're just adapting lore and story. You're not really adapting the game. I'm very hand gesturing this this video, but The Last of Us is adapting what is basically a film with some gameplay elements interspersed throughout it. And so it's a much easier thing to adapt. You've even got shots you can take straight from the game because it's that cinematic.
Did you ever see the Uncharted film? I haven't.
I haven't, no.
No. I will.
Which, again, would be easy enough to adapt. That feels like it's bad just because it's bad. Like,
yeah, it almost felt like a bit of a no-brainer of like, how could you get this wrong in a way?
But I've said to you before, haven't I? Like, I just don't see the point in adapting it to a film because it's basically that. Already.
Yeah, although again, I mean, for those that don't want to play the game, and to some of your points about, I want to get through this section so I can get to the next cutscene. That's exactly the reason why some games should be made into film or TV.
Here's going to be the question, right? If in the future I want to re-experience The Last of Us, what am I going to be naturally drawn to?
From the sounds of it, the television series.
Thing is, I love the cast in the game, and that's where things are going. But then we're not even then talking about, oh, well, I prefer The Last of Us because I like the game. I prefer The Last of Us because I prefer its cast. That's almost like saying which remake of a film which version of a film do you prefer?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Like, do you prefer? Which King Kong do you like?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which trying to think of something.
Pride and Prejudice or something along those lines.
I'm trying to think. Like, get Carter. Do you prefer watching Sly Stallone as Carter, or do you prefer watching Michael Caine as Carter?
I honestly haven't watched the Sly Stallone.
But that was that was an example where it feels like such a close remake, just country and cast difference.
I still want to get a hold of that blaxploitation version as well. That came out like a year after the Michael Caine version. I think that would be a very interesting film to watch.
But if all these are thoughts we're having, again, it leads me to question the game element of Last of Us.
Yeah.
Which again, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's fine, but it is just fine.
I think it
It's
the
everything else
real
that makes it the experience of the special game it is, not the
the real
actual game.
yeah. I think the real task for Naughty Dog now, and this was sort of the conversation really that spurned this topic and what have you, is where do they go? Because Sony Santa Monica, I've just completed God of War 2018. Obviously, Ragnarok came out last year. For a lot of places, it was Game of the Year, narrowly beating out. Oh God, what's it called? The Scary Zelda, um,
Elden Ring.
Elden Ring. Yeah,
Now
which
that's a game. That is a
yeah,
game.
exactly. That is a game. That is 100% a game. And I think if that won, like, although it's definitely not a game I would want to play,
If you're
um,
ever gonna play any Souls game, Elden Ring's
it's probably
potentially the
that
one
one.
to
Yeah.
try.
Um, but I don't have any problem with it winning Game of the Year, and definitely not being up there. So for those outlets that decide it's Game of the Year over God of War, fair enough.
But it's
For
like
those like
I think what sparked me off on this was what you were saying about Ghost of Tsushima, right? Because from what
yeah,
I've not finished, it's not a game I've finished. It's a game I have played though, and
mm,
Ghost of Tsushima does that sometimes feel the gamiest of all of Sony's first party, apart from maybe Ratchet. Ratchet is very gamey
yeah, and Ratchet is most 100% a game,
and tells a
and
great
it's
story
wonderful,
with it.
but also tells a great story
Hmm.
with it. And I think that's where, like, kind of, I think Santa Monica now, although obviously they don't put a lot of games out, are arguably the number one top dog because God of War is a game,
Yeah,
but
that
it's
also.
also a very, very, very good, strong cinematic experience, story driven, incredible acting. Like it ticks every single box.
Yeah,
Um, and I think they are definitely now probably number one.
well, it's like I've said it before as well. Like, I'm a big RPG player, right?
Yeah.
But for me, a tabletop RPG needs to have. It doesn't inherently have to be dice, but it probably would be dice. But it has to have a rule system
Yeah, yeah.
because without a rule system, we're not playing. Well, no, we are playing. We're playing make believe,
Mm.
but we're not necessarily playing a game. We are just playing.
Well, it becomes storytelling, isn't it? Like
Well,
it's
I
it's
think there's
it's
still a
something
level of.
more
I think there's
like
still an act of play in
mm,
there. We're improvising. We're bouncing off each other, but
yeah.
it's the mechanics that make it
Mm,
a game.
yeah.
It's having a rule set to add structure to what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think you've stumbled upon the right answer there. It's the difference between play and a game. A game does have structure. A game has a reason and purpose. And I think your argument with The Last of Us is maybe you are just playing it. That it feels almost because it isn't
I
the greatest stealth game ever, and because it isn't necessarily the action isn't as good as others, that maybe there's an element, especially once you've seen the TV
I
series
wouldn't.
of
That's not something I'd go for because when I say play,
mm,
I'm not using play in a kind of negative.
no, I'm not saying it's a negative thing either. I'm just saying that
It,
it's like
it's more that I don't think the play is because you're not playing when you're entertaining yourself when you're watching a TV show. You're
mm,
entertaining yourself when you're watching a film. You're
mm,
experiencing something, but you're
mm,
not at play.
yeah,
You are not. You are not playing.
mm,
I think my key point on Last of Us is that the play element is potentially a chore and
yes.
not what you're there to because it's not designed for the joy of play. It's not designed for the joy of gaming. It's
No,
not.
but then
It's
I mean
designed to
going back
get you through this story they want you to experience.
But then going back to the original release of the game, and obviously at the time, the quality of the gameplay was probably slightly closer to the quality of other games as well.
I mean,
They wanted it to be a chore to help you feel some
oh
of the, in the
yeah, I
same
know
way that
there is a
say
bit of
like
an intent there, but
in the same way that like a survival horror does, like it
yeah, I
wants you to trudge through. And obviously games like Callisto Protocol recently have got that very wrong
I wasn't
from most
necessarily
people.
using chore in the sense of, because I get
Mm,
there's an element where it's designed to feel
yeah,
like a chore,
difficult. Yeah,
but
yeah.
I more meant like a chore to the point where it's in the way, not a chore that. Again, the key point I'm trying to hit
Mm.
across is: does Naughty Dog actually just want to be making films, but for a game studio, and they are begrudgingly making?
And I do want, I know obviously you played the remake,
Yeah,
which does tweak the gameplay, but it hasn't like changed it as much as say, I know Last of Us Part 2 significantly
yeah.
changed the gameplay up.
And having
I
started Last of
wonder
Us Part
how,
2 recently,
yeah,
the gameplay does feel stronger.
I wonder if we should have this conversation again once we've both played that, and then have a little like
Maybe.
have a little
I mean,
kind of recap.
I am
Um,
going to bring the conversation to a close.
yeah, that's
Anyway,
cool.
guys, this has just been a train of thought
Yeah.
um, on uh, on just some thoughts we've had about games recently. You may
Mm.
agree with us, you may not. These are just opinions.
I mean, if we're going to mention trains briefly, Uncharted train sequences,
That is very good.
game,
I am
game.
not Spider Man. That's a game.
Oh hell yeah!
I'm not even entirely sure I agree with what I've said. This is you've really had just watched a stream of a thought. You asked me if I agree with this tomorrow. I could say no, I was wrong.
Mm.
Ask me in a week, I might agree with it again. Like it's a it's just an open thought on where gaming is
I
at the
think
moment.
no, I agree with almost everything you said. I think it's a good, valid debate to have had. And again, I'm gonna drop a bombshell. I think possibly, again, having not played Last of Us Part 2, possibly Naughty Dog have slipped to the third or even fourth place in the big Sony studios. Um, Having played God of War recently, obviously I adore Spider-Man.
But even like why
Um,
I can't get into Horizon, even Horizon is gamier, right? All the other studios
yeah,
are making gamier games.
while also potentially delivering a lot of what Naughty Dog is also known for: quality characters, quality acting. Um, I mean, admittedly, possibly because Naughty Dog did it first. Like Naughty
Yeah,
Dogs were one of the great pioneers with modern motion capture usage and stuff like that. So I think that like the other studios are now running because Naughty Dog walked.
yeah.
The question is where does Naughty Dog go next?
I think what's got to be
What?
interesting is this
Mm.
online game because an online game has to be fun.
Yeah,
It has to be a game.
yeah.
So it's got to be interesting what this multiplayer Last of Us looks like and whether Naughty Dog have maybe forgotten to make gamey games or whether. Because I'll be honest, Uncharted Online was very fun as well.
I enjoyed it, yeah, and I think because it was a little bit over the top actually. Um, and yes, the game mechanics weren't necessarily as sharp as some others,
It was one of my.
but
Some of the
then
most fun I had playing an online shooter in the PS3 era.
yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like when everyone in the whole arena is also not necessarily getting the best quality of shooter either, you can all then just suspend disbelief, have a bit of fun. I mean, I'm shit at shooters, but even I enjoyed that. Like I had a lot of fun. I died a lot, like, but
Yeah.
I had a hell of a lot of fun. So
And on that note,
yeah,
we'll see you when we see you.
yes. I possibly we'll do something wrestling based and bring back Bear Hug, because it's the Royal Rumble this weekend, and it's a rather exciting one. So I'm very tempted with that. And possibly James will do something a little bit more. We might see some comics unmasked at some point again, maybe.
Maybe.
If he feels like it. But yeah, other than that, we'll do what we want. That's which, to be honest, was the initial idea with this channel anyway. It's just an excuse.
I still want us to do like some kind of food-based road trip at some point.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Like, we'll definitely do that. I've just pre-ordered the new Mac Mini, so I may even do an unboxing.
Ooh.
I know.
You open it's like, hey, there's a Mac Mini in here. Nothing else.
Yeah.
I want some Apple stickers. It's a metal brick, a plug, and an Apple sticker.
Yeah. It's the first Mac I've bought in like 7.5 years or something like that. So like, I'll probably give it a little review, even though I'm not necessarily qualified to do so.
I am tempted by the new MacBook Pro.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't need it, but I'm tempted.
Yeah. Well, when did you upgrade last?
I've got a MacBook Pro that's still on the old NAF keyboard. It works. It does what I need it to do. I don't do any heavy lifting's done on this PC, so.
Yeah. So, well, we'll see. Yeah, but we'll see you soon. We will definitely keep putting stuff out, just as and when we feel like it.
Yeah.
So, see you next time. Same bear time, same bear place.